Coming up on Light in the D.
I've always wondered why God had the board accept me, why they wanted me to be on board, because I kept looking at pregnancy centers and even this center, and the chairman was a very good friend of mine. And I didn't think we were, and I don't really want to use the word evangelical, I don't think we represented Jesus Christ well.
Okay.
And so I came in and said, we're going to redo training, and there's nobody going to counsel here that cannot witness for Jesus Christ and does not know the scriptures well enough to do so.
You know, today job seeking has never been more challenging. You have to break through the clutter of hundreds to likely thousands of resumes and CVs that recruiters and hiring managers are receiving. And that's why you need to check out My Career Snapshot, a new tool for job hunters to help you get noticed and get hired. It's a quick reading, one-page infographic that supplements a job seeker's resume and allows you to communicate quickly with hiring managers, headhunters, and recruiters in a language they understand: numbers. So go to mycareersnapshot.com, check them out, and when you make a purchase, be sure to enter promo code LIGHT2021, and you'll receive $70 off your order. That's mycareersnapshot.com, promo code LIGHT2021, and receive $70 off your customized career snapshot at mycareersnapshot.com. Welcome to Light in the D. I'm talking to Tim Stickel, the executive director at Crossroads, which is in Auburn Hills, Michigan. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, Tim, and who you are, your background, and a little bit about Crossroads and how you got involved.
I am the executive director. I'm also the head janitor, if that makes any difference. I like that title myself. I don't know, I've been married for forever. College degree in psychology and counseling. Did a tour overseas in Vietnam, came home, started a business. My wife and I have never been employed until we came here. We've always worked for ourselves. Now I work for a board of directors, a good board, but sometimes I think they regret my history, but I love them. Been here 17 years. I have to be honest, this was not my choice. This was God's choice. I have been ordained for 20 years, and I was looking for a job, not as a senior pastor, but just as I like to teach. I like to study. I do a lot of counseling, and I just wanted to do that. And I sent out a lot of resumes, and I only got a couple of responses, and they were not real positive. And then my wife saw an ad for the executive director job here. And she came to me and she said, why don't you apply for this? And I have learned since to listen more positively to my wife and to God.
Smart.
And I said, no, thank you. I do not want to work at a pregnancy center. I do not want to work with all women. My wife and I had been supporters here for years before this came up.
I was going to say you had a heart for it, obviously.
Oh yeah. We've been involved in their fundraisers or events and stuff, and I knew the chairman of the board. Anyway, my wife did the only thing a wise woman does. She cheated, and she said, "Why don't you pray about it?" And I did, and 5 weeks later, I had the job. And I have to tell you, of all the jobs I've had, and I've had a number of them, we run 3 or 4 businesses, this is the hardest, best job I've ever had. Yeah. And I regret to this day ever saying I didn't want to work with all women, because I have learned more from them than I could have ever learned anywhere else.
Yeah.
We have 15 of them on staff. I'm the only male here and the only full-time employee.
So you've been doing that for 17 years. So let's talk about what the services you offer at Crossroads. How has it changed in 17 years? What the services you're offering?
We do pregnancy tests, ultrasounds, STI, STD testing and treatment. We do counseling. We do Bible studies. We do classes, prenatal classes, breastfeeding classes, delivery classes. We do material assistance, where we give out baby clothes, diapers, and wipes. We do a ton of counseling. There's 2 of us on staff that do a lot of counseling. We run a program in the public schools called SHARE, Sexual Health and Relationship Education. We're in 52 schools. We teach somewhere between 8,000 and 12,000 students a year in the public schools and in private schools and in Christian schools. I'm sure we do more than that, but that's a pretty extensive list. We call ourselves a pregnancy medical center. And we're about to, come the first of the year, we're going to start doing prenatal exams for women that come to us that don't have insurance yet, and help them to get Medicaid, get on Medicaid. And the doctor that's going to help us do this has a large network of OBGYNs, and they're going to hook them up with doctors where they can go get care instead of waiting till the last minute. So, and everything we do is free. We're funded by people like you.
Yeah. No money from the government, right?
No government money at all. Nothing from state, local, federal, anything. No, never had a grant. We've applied for a few, but apparently God has protected us. So we've never had grants. So we're totally, our funding all comes from individuals. Actually 1,042 of them to be exact. We just happened to look that up today. And they donate, a lot of them donate every month, just like clockwork. Some of them have been doing it for 35 years.
That's great.
Since we started. It's unbelievable. So those are the services we offer. And we count clients, but we count the number of services, because we'll see a client 2 or 3 times for 2 or 3 different services.
Mm-hmm.
So we see about 1,200 individuals every year. We'll do about 3,000 services this year in 2021. This is
Okay.
2021. Yeah. So we stay busy. We're open 4 days a week. We're going to about to be open a 5th day so that we can do the prenatal exams. And so we're busy, and we provide a lot of services. When I started here, I've always wondered why God had the board accept me, why they wanted me to be on board, because I kept looking at pregnancy centers, and even this center, and the chairman was a very good friend of mine. And I didn't think we were, and I don't really want to use the word evangelical. I don't think we represented Jesus Christ well enough.
Okay.
And so I came in and said, we're going to redo training, and there's nobody going to counsel here that cannot witness for Jesus Christ and does not know the scriptures well enough to do so. And we lost about half of our volunteers and one of our staff in a week. And I wasn't discouraged at all. We were never busy. We were seeing 200 people a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had time, God gave us time to clean out, and the people that left were great. I mean, I loved them. They just didn't want to have to do that. And my feeling was, we haven't helped anybody if we talk about having an abortion, if there's no change of heart.
Right.
And I just felt we had an obligation to God to run a ministry that, first of all, witnessed for Jesus Christ. I am totally opposed to abortion, but I am totally for witnessing for Jesus Christ first and foremost. And if you're not going to do that, you're really not doing them much good. You know, if they walk out here and get hit by a truck and go to hell,
Yeah.
what good have you done? So
Right.
we started doing that. We started offering Bible studies, and we had a little discussion with some board members at a board meeting who said I shouldn't do that. And I'm not the most couth guy you've ever met. And so I bet him. I said, I'll tell you what, let's have it. We'll let God decide. We'll offer Bible studies this month, and we'll see how many people take them. And if the majority of people take them, we'll do Bible studies. We'll offer them. I had a good friend of mine that worked here with me, and her father had been in Navigators. And so she wrote some very early on beginning Bible studies for people who are just trying to learn about Christ. And I can tell you exactly, we had 98 people come in that month, and we had 98 people do Bible studies. And I presented that and said, I guess that solves that, doesn't it? So now we do Bible studies. We do them online. We do them face to face. We do them in groups. We do them everywhere. Everybody, you don't come in here and not learn about Christ. You don't come in here and not hear the gospel. And we're polite about it. We don't beat people with their Bible.
Sure.
And we've had people that have said no, thank you. And we respect that because we do. But that's probably the biggest change. That and the fact that we've grown. We're 2 buildings now. God made us bigger. We're not big.
I'm glad you brought up the point about sharing the gospel and making that primary, right? I mean, it's part of what you do. Are the majority of the women that are coming in, are they looking for abortion, or are they in the mindset that they want to keep this child, but they just don't have the means?
The answer is yes. We
Above.
see a large number of women who come in who know we're not an abortion clinic, but want to find out what all the options are. And we discuss abortion, so they know it. We don't do graphic pictures.
Yeah.
We have them if somebody really wants to see them, but we don't really do them. And we explain abortion, we explain adoption, we explain all the resources that are available. And we explain the law about being coerced into having an abortion, because that does happen. We're always on the lookout for traffickers, because there's a lot of trafficking here in Metro Detroit. We hardly advertise. I mean, we have a couple landing pages on the internet and stuff, and we have a website out, but it's all word of mouth. Mm-hmm. We get our business cards back, our appointment cards back from somebody else who said they told me to come here. And I'll tell you, I know I told you this story. We do a lot of STI, STD testing, which means we see some very interesting people, both males and females. We see a lot of males now. And one of the first ones that came in, and I'm always talking to them. I hardly ever shut up. You know that about me already. One of the first ones that came in happened to be a homosexual. And he was polite and stuff, but he wasn't real happy to be here. And when he left, after we had taken care of him and helped him, he wrote on some website, let me see if I can quote it. In spite of the fact they're Christians, if you need to go and get tested and get help, go there.
Yeah.
Well, you can't buy advertising like that. No marketer would ever come up with a slogan like that, in spite of the fact they're Christians. Right? I mean, and it happens like that all the time.
Yeah.
God's just blessed us.
So going back to evangelizing, and I want to ask you about the pro-life industry call it an industry, just the movement, the pro-life movement in the United States. Are you familiar with the organization End Abortion Now?
Yes.
I've followed them. There's a pastor that's part of that out of Arizona. I don't know if you know Pastor Jeff Durbin. He's very of the mindset that to end abortion, we have to make the gospel part of it. And that his concern is a lot of these laws that try to get passed are more from the secular world, but even the church avoids putting the gospel as part of the message. And his concern has been, and I'm just curious what you think about this, is that the movement is become an industry to make money, and they need to keep that going. So they really don't ever really want to truly end it.
So one of my best friends is an attorney, and she was conceived in rape. And she runs an organization called Save the One. And every time there's laws that are trying to be passed and they put exceptions in them, like the rape exception, What you're basically saying is that it's okay to kill a child who's conceived in rape and done nothing. They're not guilty. If you're going to execute somebody, execute the rapist. Don't execute
Right.
the baby. And was the governor of Texas? Was his name Rick Perry?
Mm-hmm.
He was in the process of trying to push through a bill down in Texas a number of years ago, and it had the rape exception in it. And she flew down and talked to him. And changed his mind. She said, "Is it okay that they could have killed me?
Yeah.
I mean, is that justifiable?" And people don't think this through.
Is that what it is? Just a lack of information and just understanding? Because they
Well,
get emotional on some of these topics and they don't really think through.
I think they think that we're making progress incrementally.
Yeah.
If we can push through an abortion law, an anti-abortion law, even if there are some exceptions, they think that incrementally that's a good idea. And it's not. I understand the thinking, but it just can't be that way.
Right. Because a law doesn't change hearts. The gospel changes hearts.
Right. The gospel does. I mean, we've got to change the hearts of the people. That's what our intent has to be.
Yeah.
If you change the hearts of the people, you're going to change how they think about life.
Right.
And that's where we've got to go with this. Let's talk about Texas for a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
What just happened there?
Yeah. I'm all for that law and I'm all against it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm heartbroken that you could still take the life of a child before the heart beats, because a child that is conceived when the egg and the sperm unite, that's a baby. That's a child made in the image of God. It doesn't happen traveling down the birth canal or when the heart starts beating or when there's brain waves. Right. It is a child from the moment of conception. And so I have trouble dealing with some of that, but I give them great credit because they're going to push this to the limit. Now, we had the same bill try to be passed up here in Michigan, and I opposed it up here because we already have a law in the state of Michigan that makes abortion illegal. When Roe v. Wade if Roe v. Wade is overturned, that law Michigan will be an anti-abortion state.
Mm-hmm.
Right? In Texas, it's not that way. And so I admire them. The problem is that we have so much going on and we have so many problems that people don't understand what's going to happen. And I'm not a prophet, so you may not stone me to death if I'm wrong. If the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, there will be so much uprising by the very far out pro-abortion people that I'm concerned for my staff.
Oh.
I'm concerned for every pregnancy center. We get threats. I get threats. We don't get too many here, as it is. So if the law is overturned, and I have to be honest, even if the law is overturned, that's not going to change anybody's mind or heart.
No.
They're still going to be pro-abortion. They're still going to hate Christ. Abortion is not the sin. The sin is not knowing Jesus Christ as Savior and following hard after him, right? Now, if they don't, if the Supreme Court goes against the law in Texas, the pro-aborts are going to be so emboldened, I fear for our lives again.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of this has to do with the way we look at it and the silence. You know, I am not Catholic, but we would not be here today if it were not for the Catholic movement. We owe them a debt we can never repay. We have followed in their footsteps. Churches, and not all churches, I don't want to just broad,
for sure.
But some churches have given up talking about sin. And I don't know how a church can talk about grace and the death of our Savior on the cross, dying for our sins, when you won't talk about sin. What do we need Jesus for? That's a stupid idea, right? And I think because we think we're going to help more people by not making it's a black and white issue to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and follow hard after him, or don't. It's up to you. You know, do your thing.
Well, Tim, talking about sin isn't loving. and I'm being sarcastic,
I know.
That's what's happened in the church.
Right. But if you can only talk about sin if you're willing to talk about grace. That's one of the things we do here. We don't condemn the girls for getting pregnant, or for the guys for getting them pregnant, or for those who come in here that have an STI or STD. We never say, "Oh, shame on you, you terrible person." We never do that. We say, let's talk to you. Let's talk about this. What kind of behavior got you into this?
Yeah.
Now, what kind of behavior would get you out of it? How would you live that way? What does it mean? You claim, we have a lot of people claim to be Christians that come in here, a ton of them. And they might just be untaught. I don't know. But you gotta get to the root of the problem. And it's the heart. And the church has to get to the root of the problem. There is sin. We're watching sin. We watch it all over, and it's becoming more and more normal.
Yeah.
But watching it and not doing anything about it and thinking we're so good we don't need to do it is just, it's a ridiculous, unbiblical concept.
Vodi Bakum, Vodi Bakum? Yeah, I mean, he says, I'm paraphrasing, but he said the church came up with the 11th commandment: thou shalt be nice. Thou shalt be nice. And he said we forgot the other 10. Yeah. And what it's turned us into, and it's not every church, but we've become cowards, and we want to be liked by the culture. And instead of speaking the hard truths of how Jesus dealt with sin, we've turned, loving your neighbor into affirming them and affirming sin.
We have to be kind, and we have to love our neighbor, but we've got to love them enough to tell them the truth.
Right.
And without beating them with the Bible. Of course, I use this little teeny Bible, so I couldn't beat anybody.
How do you read that thing?
I take my glasses off. But it all comes back to, we've got to witness for Jesus Christ, and we can't be ashamed of doing so. And since we've been here, I was figuring out the other day when I knew we were going to talk, there've probably been close to 20,000 people that have heard the gospel here in the last 17 years. When I go to churches and try to get mission support, I tell them we're the biggest outreach next to Billy Graham.
Yeah. And
we're better than Billy Graham because we follow up with everybody on one-on-one.
But what you're doing is you're discipling your staff on how to share the gospel, how to be the Great Commission. And I don't think most churches, I got to be careful. I don't say most churches, but a lot of churches don't disciple their flock on how to share the gospel. And maybe there's a time and a place for this, but you just be nice to people and kind to them. And eventually they'll ask, what's so different about you? I don't know about you. I think I'm a pretty nice guy and pretty kind to people. I've never had anyone say to me, hey, what's so different about you? Oh, let me tell you about Jesus. We're looking for that door that's comfortable for us.
Yeah, and there's no comfortable door.
No.
Although I do have to tell you, one time we did have a client. She happened to be Hindu that came in, and she and her husband came in. She just flat out said, "Why are you guys like us? Why do you like us? We are not likable. Why do you like us?" I said, that's the way Jesus told us to treat you.
Yeah.
And then we had a full-on conversation about the life of Jesus Christ and why he came and died. And it was great. So in all my years, which is a lot, that's the only time I've ever seen that happen.
Yeah. I imagine you could help train some churches how to train their flocks how to share the gospel.
It's interesting. I belong to a very small church. We have trouble training our flock. Yeah. Because people aren't interested. For those pastors that are trying to do this and are unsuccessful, all I can say is keep at it. Just keep at it, because you may not be seeing a whole lot of fruit, but it is worth the effort. And it's hard. Right now we have 15 people on staff here, and they're all nuts. Literally, they're crazy. As individuals, we're about as worthless as anything you can think of. But as a team, we have one goal: serve Jesus Christ. That's it. And you take 15 crazy people and put them in a room and they want to serve Christ, you can't believe the things that can be accomplished. So don't give up, guys. If you're at a church and trying to get stuff going, don't give up.
Part of it too is, we don't get out into the communities, we don't evangelize, we don't get in the public square. And I'd be curious to hear what you think about this, but this has been on my mind a lot lately, particularly what's going on in our world and around us. There's certainly a better case for homeschooling now than there's ever been. As a parent myself, what's going on in the public school systems. But I was listening to a podcast and it was out of California, and they were talking about how you could have a church in California with 30,000 members, and in the elementary school right next door, public school is doing drag queen story hours. How does that happen in a community where there's a church of 30,000 people? And how are these people not speaking into their communities, involved in their local governments? And I think there's some who think that, well, Christians, we shouldn't get involved in that stuff. We shouldn't get involved in politics.
Okay, so and I'm not condemning the church of 30,000, nor am I condemning their staff. But let's just hypothesize for a second. You start a church and you give the biblical gospel,
Mm-hmm.
and you teach good doctrines and good theology, and you have one or two people show up, and you're kind of downtrodden. So you water it down just a little bit, and now you have 30 show up. And you water it down a little bit more, and now you have 300 show up. But of those 300, there's only 3 that are really intent on witnessing and doing anything for the gospel.
Yeah.
So many people, I think, and again, I don't want to just paint a broad brush. A lot of people go to church and they say, I serve God on Sundays, I go to church. I worship him on Sundays, I go to church. I sing. But the rest of the week is mine. I'm going to do what I want. And I'm going to do it how I want. So if the gay couple across the street from you, they have no idea. They know you disappear on Sunday mornings, and they don't ask because they're not really that interested. And you're not out there telling them and saying, hey, you want to come to church with me?
Mm-hmm.
Want to come? Right? Because if you do, what if they don't like you? Right? I don't think the heart, again, I don't want to paint a broad brush, but I don't think we are teaching people what it really means to be a Christian. There are so many people that know about God. Satan and the devils know about God, but they don't believe he's really going to do anything. And I think we have, and it's my fault with my kids and my parents' fault with me. We don't have a picture of God that is, I'm going to use the word terrifying.
Yeah.
As Jonathan Edwards said,
mm-hmm.
You're hanging by a thread over hell, the flames of hell.
Yeah.
And you're a spider on that. It takes one flicker and that line breaks. And the only thing holding you up is God.
Yeah.
And I don't think we think that way. I think most of us think that we're God in our own right.
Yeah.
My decisions are mine. They have nothing to do with God. So I think the theology has been watered down over the years. Historically, I think you can trace it back in America to the late 1700s, and it's gotten watered down since then.
Yeah. I think going back to what you say about sin, we don't understand our own depravity and how sinful we truly are, and we deserve God's wrath. And we don't understand God's complete character. God is love. Oh, he's loving. Like, loving God would never send anyone to hell. We make that up. We because we don't like that. We don't want to be judged. We don't want to think, we think we're good people. He's a good person. I'm a good person. You see it on those man on the street. I'll see these guys go to evangelize to these kids on college campuses, and they'll say they're Christians. And they'll ask the question, like, are you going to heaven? Yeah. How do you know? Oh, I'm a good person. I've done good things. And they grew up in the church. How do you respond that way?
Yeah, it's because of bad teaching and no listening. Because people's ears are stopped. You ever seen that video? I don't remember who does it. Somebody famous. And he goes around and he says, so can I just ask you a few questions?
Yeah, that's
Who is that?
I'm trying to think of his name. Darn, he's got the dog in his why am I I know him. It's gonna pop in my head like any moment now. Yeah.
Have you ever stolen anything? Well, yeah. Have you ever lied about something? Well, yeah. Have you ever looked at a woman with lust? Yeah. Ever gotten mad at your neighbor? Yeah. Okay, so you're a good person. You're telling me you're a lying, thieving, adulterating, right? And he goes on, and people's mouths just drop open. We've used that video here, and it's old. It might still be black and white for all I know, but it's hilarious.
Ray Comfort.
Yeah, Ray Comfort. That's it. Yep.
Oh, look at the two. When we put our two minds together, Ray Comfort. Ray Comfort, everyone.
Yeah.
He's great. But what I love again is he uses the 10 commandments as what they were for, to essentially point us to our sin. And that we can't do anything to save ourselves. That's why we need Christ.
Well, first of all, let's go back to the thing, God is love. That is an attribute of God.
Yep.
But God's primary is that he's holy, holy, holy. And then he's just and he's righteous. And eventually you get to love. But being holy, he cannot tolerate sin.
Nope.
And everybody thinks, yeah, but my sin's not that bad. I had a really good friend of mine who spent years mentoring me. Older guy. He probably was my age when I met him, so I don't think he's that old now. And I said to him one day, so does it get easier when you get older not to sin? And as I knew his background, I knew that before he came to Christ, he was a pretty interesting guy. And he said, no, it's worse. And I was flabbergasted. And I thought, how can this be? And I said, why? And he said, because I can't sin with my body anymore, but I've come to realize what a sinner my brain is.
Yeah.
And I've always been struck by that. And it's made me far more like Martin Luther, repenting of more things that I never would have thought of as sin before until I talked to him.
Yeah.
And I think that we have gotten hardened by our own sin and hardened by the sin we see around us. So we don't even flinch anymore.
No. Because we see everything around us and we think, oh, all this is worse. And I'm a good person. I'm a righteous person. And our only righteousness is in Christ. If in knowing Christ and recognizing, I've been a believer now for 10 years. And by the grace of God, I know it was nothing I did. A light switch went off one day when I heard the gospel. And I'd heard the gospel before, but it was God's choosing in that moment to open my eyes and see my sin, all of that stuff from the past. I had a porn addiction and for years. And by the grace of God, that porn addiction did end. But I'll tell you what, it's all up there still. And it's a constant, lust is a constant struggle. And I think most men, deal with it. But we don't talk about it because we're ashamed of it. So we justify it to a certain degree. But here's the thing I know. And this was actually, I found peace in this recently, is realizing that God doesn't owe me anything. And yet he gave me everything in Christ.
Yep.
And I get choked up when I think about that because I know I don't deserve it. I don't deserve his love at all. I deserve his wrath. And I don't think we think along those terms. But that's the amazing grace.
Yeah. And that's true of all of us, even if we don't believe it. But it is true. And we need to come to that realization because once again, if that is not your position on your own self, you don't need a savior. We don't need Jesus Christ.
No.
I think some churches teach that. I think the world teaches that. I think a lot of individual Christians teach that, think that, and it's destructive. It's going to be a bad day at the judgment for a lot of people.
Yeah. So it's not all about how to have your best life ever.
No. If I was going to have my best life ever, I'd still have my own business. I wouldn't be working here. But this is, like I said, it is the hardest, best job I've ever had. The rewards of seeing so many people come to Christ. We had a little girl get baptized this weekend, and I just listened to her testimony, and I was like in tears. I didn't know she'd learned that much from us. I had no idea. And I thought, wow, God, you really did use a bunch of losers to save a soul.
Well, Jesus started with 12 losers, and hey, that's how he rolls.
Yeah, obviously. So,
and it's all he's got to work with, let's be honest. So that's all God's got to work with anyway. So
well, I'm definitely convinced he doesn't pick the cream of the crop.
So when's your book coming out, Tim?
I'm not writing. I started a book a long time ago and I threw it away.
Hey, I had in my notes, you have your book's coming out. What?
No.
You should write a book.
I don't have time to write a book.
All right.
It'd be fun, but so I like your shirt.
Yeah, you like that? So you want to talk about you want to share what happened this year? This was the walk at the Detroit Zoo, which we were very excited to be a part of.
Yeah, it was amazing what God did. We did, we only do 2 fundraisers a year. We do a banquet in March, the first Friday in March. We do it at the Royal Park in downtown Rochester. And we do a zoo walk or some kind of walk or a bike for life in the fall. And this year we were blessed to be able to rented the whole zoo. And from 7 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock, the only people in the zoo were those people who support Crossroads. So it was pretty interesting. It was fun. And we actually had almost 200 people registered for the walk. It was the biggest non-banquet event we've ever had. It was awesome. And it was, again, God and I had been discussing, because I had not been listening real well. I have a tendency to do that.
Me too.
About expanding services here. And we needed to have a pretty big, our budget's almost $750,000 a year because everything we do is free.
And again, that's amazing given you take no money. All your money is coming from donations, right?
Yeah.
Donors. That's it.
Oh, we have, Oakland County and the surrounding areas, and now we've got donors that have left Oakland County and gone elsewhere, but we have God has given us some very generous people. We have no major donors, none, zero. Our biggest donation this year was $10,000.
Yeah.
Our biggest donation, and yet our budget's $750,000, and we'll raise it. We'll pay our bills. So we needed the zoo walk to be big because we want to start these prenatal exams, and that's going to increase our budget by about $100,000 a year. I love volunteers, but a workman's worthy of his hire, and we pay our people. And we do have some volunteers, but for the majority of our people are paid because they work hard. And we raised a very large sum of money at the zoo walk, which convinced the board that maybe God was pointing, going, yes, you probably should do this.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think this is going out on a limb to say that I think a big part of it, I think the number one part of why God is blessing Crossroads is because you guys you're true to his word, and you're true to people with his word, and you share the gospel. And I think it's key.
Yeah. I do.
God's blessing you for it.
When we started doing Bible studies, and we started training people to be able to witness for Jesus Christ, our numbers just have been going up.
Yeah. Christians, brothers and sisters, we got to stand firm. We got to stand firm on the gospel, and we're in very difficult times, and I don't think it's going to get easier.
Oh, I don't think so either. Interesting, just a side note here. We're in Auburn Hills, and everybody thinks, well, just the surrounding areas where we get our clients from. But it's not true. We get them all the way from Toledo to Mount Pleasant
Wow.
to Ypsilanti to the lake. We've had people fly home on college breaks to see us because they didn't want to go to a pregnancy center in their own area.
Wow.
And you can only
That's
attribute that
amazing.
to God. Oh, it's got to be God. It's not
Yeah.
us. We're not that great. Oh, and our
How are they
services,
finding out
I mean,
about you? How are
word
they?
of mouth.
Yeah, word of
Word
mouth.
of mouth. Yep.
They're seeking you
It's
out.
amazing.
That's amazing. And God's putting it on their hearts to come to you. You know, he's drawing them to you
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
I'm convinced it's not just for the services, it's to hear the gospel.
yeah. Yeah. Well, God bless you, brother. And
Thank you.
thank you for, I would love to have you back on to have conversations like this. I think it's
Sure.
very important. And, you know, like I said to you yesterday, you know, we're about bringing, you know, the truth, you know, and light to the darkness. And we need to share the truth and what's pure,
Yes.
what's pure and what's beautiful.
Yeah.
So thank you, brother.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Maybe we should get back together after the Supreme Court rules.
Yes. Let's have that. Let's plan on that.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah. All right. Take care, brother.
All right. Thank you. And God bless.